Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Hardware Podcast. My name is Jackson Danner alongside Omar Borja. As you guys already know, we're going through different college football awards, and man, we are coming up close to the Home Depot Awards show coming up later in December. But this week, we're going to do the John Mackey Award. If you don't already know, goes out to the best tight end in the nation, or does it, Omar? We're going to talk a little bit about this by dividing up these prospects into semi-finalists, as the Mackey Award committee board, I don't know what they call it, but they've already come up with their semi-finalist list. Omar and I saw a few guys that might have been snubbed off of there that deserve to be on at least the watch list, but definitely the semi-finalist list. And so I'm going to be going over the guys that they actually have and actually have a shot to win it. Omar, you're going to be going over some guys that maybe should be on there.
Absolutely. Let's get started. I mean, I'm excited too. I was not aware that the Mackey Award had released their semifinalists. So I mean, I compiled my own list of guys that I thought were deserving, and also not just deserving, but also like kind of like big, like huge names at tight end. You know, whether they had high draft stock at the beginning of the year, like Charlie Kohler, who was a semifinalist. I mean, not to necessarily Thunder, or guys that had burst on the scene last year, whether it be like, everyone knows Michael Mayer. I think I'm not sure if this is a widespread nickname, but Baby Gronk. I heard Chris Fowler call him that on the broadcast early in the season of Florida State and Notre Dame. But yeah, no, let's get into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'll go ahead and take the lead on this one. Again, the guys I'll be going over are semifinalists. They actually have a shot to win this award. Omar's going to be going over guys that should have a shot to win the award, but aren't going to, at least this year. My first guy, Isaiah Likely out of Coastal Carolina. An incredible year that he's had so far. 37 receptions, 632 yards, 8 touchdowns, and over 17 yards per catch. Likely has had a phenomenal year. It certainly helps that he has Grayson McCall throwing in the ball. Omar, I mean, he's got such a build. He's strong. He's fast. He's athletic. There's this clip. I'm going to post it on the Instagram story. There's this clip of him against Kansas where McCall throws it a little bit off, doesn't throw it where he should, right? And he turns his body. It's just such an athletic catch for a tight end, something you don't see too often from guys with that size. But man, Likely is having a heck of a year. And anytime you're over, 15 yards per catch, but 17 is just ridiculous. So Isaiah Likely is my first guy.
I mean, I think Likely is a front runner. Well, I think he'll be top 3. I think he'll be a finalist. The yards per catch is absolutely impressive from the tight end position, averaging 17 yards per catch. He also had a game for the ages. If we're talking tight ends, the Arkansas State game, 8 catches, 232 yards, 4 touchdowns. I mean, 4 touchdowns in itself is impressive for a receiver or a tight end. But the fact that he did it on only 8 catches and averaged nearly 30 yards a catch. So it's a testament to Isaiah Likely and how he runs that offense. Like it's hard. I guess it's rare that you see a deep threat tight end. But the way Coastal's offense works with that shotgun option scheme, I mean, and the RPOs and everything, like it just works. And Likely's in a position like really no other tight end in the country. So I think he ends up a finalist and in the top 3.
And deservedly so. Omar, I know you're going to be going over guys with some more touchdowns, some better touchdown numbers than a lot of the guys I'll be going over. But man, over all these guys, Brock Bowers out of Georgia, we've talked about Kohler a little bit, McBride, like, man, he has more touchdowns than all these guys. And this is something that I was going to get into a little bit later. I'll just go ahead and bring it up now. For a true X and Z receiver, or even slot receivers, I'm not too worried about it if your touchdown numbers are low, right? Because it's just that I don't think that's a great evaluation. Personally, I don't. At least, I mean, certainly, I don't want to say it doesn't matter. I'm just saying that you can be a great wide receiver without great touchdown numbers. Like, look at Stephon Diggs this year. But man, with tight ends, I'm gonna have to say otherwise. Like, I think touchdowns are a true indicator a lot of times of how good you are as a tight end, because man, if you've got that size, you want to be able to use it in the red zone. You just don't want to, with wide receivers, you're not always going to throw it out on a fade or something like that. You don't always trust your quarterback to do that. But man, in the red zone, you've got to trust the size of your tight end, the athleticism of your tight end to go and get that ball. And man, Isaiah Likely has put up, 8 touchdowns, which is awesome this year. My next guy, I'm going to go with another great touchdown number and even more yards per catch. Brock Bowers out of Georgia, as much as it pains me to say this. He has had a phenomenal year, 28 receptions, 493 yards, 6 touchdowns, and 17.6 yards per catch. Certainly helps that he plays for the number 1 team. And you can't be a tight end on Georgia and not be great at run blocking too, which is such an important part as a tight end. As Kittle and Gronk and all them say at TU up in Nashville, we've got to run routes like receivers and we've got to block like offensive tackles. It's really part of the job description. Hopefully the people that vote on the Mackey Award are actually, watching the all 22 and watching to see if they're actually run blocking well also. But Bowers has had a heck of a year.
I mean, really the sweet spot for being a tight end and winning this award is being, in a pro style scheme. And Georgia's scheme, of course, is as pro style as it gets. And they have the powerful run game as well. So the play action game is banging as well. So Bowers is in a good spot. But again, it's I guess perception kind of hurts him in terms of this. He's on the number 1 team in the country, but it's also Georgia. When you think about Georgia, you think about Nick Chubb, Todd Gurley, Sony Michel, and just really every single back that's come out of there, DeAndre Swift. And you don't really think about tight ends in the passing game. So I really think that's going to hurt Bowers when it comes to the voting for this award.
I think it may be on the flip side of the coin of that point, right? You don't think of Georgia as a deep throwing team. So to have such a high yards per catch is insane on Georgia. Also, Georgia is running a lot of these 13, 23, 22 personnel sets. They're running it more than almost anyone else in the country. To be able to stand out like that on a team with you have to have at least 3 good tight ends on that roster and dressing every Saturday. And they have that, and Bowers is still standing out among all of them. So I don't know. I might disagree with you a little bit. Same coin, just the different side of that, which as much, don't like Georgia, but man, I got to hand it to him. Bowers has really stood above the rest when there are more of quote unquote the rest than a lot of these other guys are having to deal with.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll go with that because there are some good yards per catch guys. Isaiah Likely, like you mentioned, a guy for another guy. I'm gonna mention another guy that was snubbed in terms of yards per catch as well. But yeah, no, I see where you're coming from as well. Where I guess it's out of the ordinary to see a tight end from Georgia doing all these great things with yards per catch and explosiveness.
Yeah, but I can see your point too. I can see it both ways with that. So regardless, you can't say that Bowers is not having a great year. He certainly is. It's just a matter of how great, in all honesty. I'm gonna go with there's so many guys. Those are my top 2, and then it's you can really make there's a lot of debate up for grabs as far as the next one. As far as a third guy, I'm going to go with a guy who doesn't get enough respect, and his stats are not the flashiest. But man, he is still, considering the system he's in, he's putting up a heck of a year. Trey McBride, the tight end of Colorado State, we've mentioned him on the pod before. 74 receptions on the year, 838 yards. Only 1 touchdown on the year, but averaging 11.3 yards per catch. It's not applicable for Mackey talk necessarily, but I want to talk a little bit about from a scouting perspective on what he did at the previous level in high school. Omar, we've talked about this. I don't think on the podcast, but I know I've mentioned this to you before. Playing multiple sports, especially in high school, is such an important thing from a scouting perspective. And man, he has his high school's record for most career basketball points, as well as most career home runs. He also played on the other side of the ball in high school, 60 tackles for loss, 7 interceptions, and he has some special teams capabilities too. He has 6 block kicks in high school. McBride, he's athletic. He doesn't have the best quarterback thrown to him. He doesn't have a Grayson McCall or, even a Stetson Bennett type guy that's thrown to him. And like I said, he hasn't put up the greatest numbers, but man, if you're actually like watching him, McBride has had a great year. And just the fact that it's on the semifinalist list with not even, 2 touchdowns really speaks to that.
Jeez. Well, I'm gonna push back a little bit, and I think McBride is number 2. I think, if not number 1 in the running. Um, Actually, honestly, I'm gonna say I think he's number 1 because yeah, touchdowns are great, but he's got 74 catches. He leads the team in. I'm pretty sure he leads the team in catches. On a Colorado State team that definitely does not like to pass the ball a lot. I mean, anyone that's seen Steve Adazio's offenses would much rather watch paint dry. And that's coming back from his Boston College days. No disrespect, but it's like it's not really conducive to the fans of today. I mean, yeah, they're throwing for 234 yards per game, but for him to lead the team in receiving as a tight end, honestly, I'm impressed that they're even averaging 234 yards per game passing. I thought it was going to be way less. I definitely did not give Todd Centeio and that offensive stuff credit, but I mean, like, you get the point. You think Steve Adazio, you think Andre Williams, you think Anthony Dillon, or AJ Dillon, AJ Dillon, and all that stuff. I feel like there's a reason that Anthony Brown transferred and he's doing so well at Oregon because, the offensive system that Adazio. I don't mean for this to become a Steve Adazio bashing, but like I think that just proves my point where I think Trey McBride is the front runner for this with 74 catches. I mean, no one would be surprised if this was a high flying pass offense like Nevada in the Mountain West, which I mean we'll get to Nevada later on when we talk about snubs. But this is Colorado State, and I don't care if they're averaging 234 yards per game running the ball or throwing the ball. That's a team that would much rather run the ball, as David Bailey's having a nice year out there in Fort Collins. But that's just my opinion on McBride. I think he's a favorite, and if he doesn't win it, that's just ridiculous because he's got 43 more catches than Brock Bowers with Georgia. And yeah, I mean, you can say number 1 team in the country, but like he's just dominating stat wise for the semifinalists. Like Kohler, he's got way more catches than Charlie Kohler, a guy that like people thought was gonna be drafted pretty high after the season. But yeah, that's just my thoughts, McBride. I think he is the guy to beat in this race.
No, absolutely. And man, I'm glad that I feel kind of like a hypocrite after saying what I said about, X and Z receivers, touchdowns don't matter as much as if you're a tight end. But man, I mean, your yards per catch and your touchdowns will probably be down with having so many targets. They always know to cover you, probably double covered. I haven't watched any McBride film or anything like that, but I would assume that he's double covered on every single play, just because they know. I mean, Omar, we talked about this earlier this year. Like there was one game where he had like 117 out of 119 passing yards or something like that. Like he had like just a ridiculous workload for, or a ridiculous proportion of the workload for the passing game, even, they're not a pass happy team. But man, yeah, McBride, I think you're right, is probably the guy to beat. And he certainly is at the next level for sure. He's already looking like a starting tight end.
I feel like this is an award that's like friendly for the group of 5 because I think a couple of years ago we had Harrison Bryant win it for Florida Atlantic. And I think 2020, I want to say that Isaiah Likely, or no, sorry, my bad. Your guy Kyle Pitts won it, but this is a very group of 5 friendly award, like relatively speaking. I'm gonna pull up the past
Yeah, no, it
winners and
is.
just
Especially considering, like, I mean, there are a lot of, you have to go back to like the 90s, to see like who was the last non-power 5 guy to win it, but man, I mean, not for this award. So, which is awesome. I mean, that's what we want to encourage, right?
yeah.
It- still the minority of it, still unusual.
Yeah, so Bryant was the first and only Group of 5 winner in 2019, but I mean it's still like it's very recent and there's a lot of depth in terms of Group of 5 for tight ends, which we'll talk about more for sure. But yeah, I guess who's the next semifinalist that you have ranked?
I have my last one. I've got a couple of sleepers that are on the semifinalist list too, but my last guy is one who we've mentioned, Charlie Kohler, out of Iowa State. 33 receptions, 430 yards, 2 touchdowns, and 13 yards per catch. It's not necessarily the stats that I'm looking at with this. He is a great run blocking tight end, really paved the way for Breece Hall a lot this year. And I mean, Breece Hall has not had the offensive line that he had to work with last year. It seems like from everything I've seen, at least, I'm not sure. I haven't done enough research on this, but it seems like Breece Hall, it's not him that's fallen off in production wise. It just seems like he doesn't have the surrounding pieces around him. And Kohler is not one of those pieces that's fallen off. He also, man, tremendous size. He's 6'6", 257, tremendously long arms with 34.25-inch arms. That's longer than George Kittle and as long as Rob Gronkowski. Like, he has very ideal size for a tight end. And man, combine that with run blocking and a decent amount of production at the tight end position. Yeah, man, he's been a beast this year.
I think for him, that's the guy where stats don't tell the whole story because, like you said, I mean, Breece Hall, man, Iowa State's chock full of weapons out there in Ames. So his numbers could be better if he was in a situation like McBride. But I mean, Charlie Kohler, he's been pretty much a high reputation guy, sliding up draft boards since last year. Good size, like you said. I feel like, yeah, you have to be a good run blocker if you're blocking for Breece Hall and playing in that scheme that loves to run the ball with Hall.
It's the same
So
point
yeah,
that I made about Bowers. Like, if you're
yeah.
running all these, like I said, 13, 22, 23 personnel sets, like, you have to be, have to stand out.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I will say this, like you said about Bowers, I don't think that perception is there as much as is Georgia, because like Georgia, for years, their calling card has been like, running the ball. Iowa State, it's like people don't really have like any perception of them on offense. Like, that's gonna hurt. That's gonna negatively affect like their tight ends that are, or I guess their passing game, like their perception of the passing game. So, because I mean, you got Brock Purdy throwing the ball compared to JT Daniels and Stetson Bennett, which like those guys aren't bad, but I'm sure a lot of coaches would take Brock Purdy over both of those guys in a heartbeat in any other scheme. So yeah.
Omar, you're forgetting about that that graphic that Georgia football posted, where they, have quarterbacks are built between the hedges, and they have like David Green and DJ Shockley and Jake Fromm and all that. Remember, they're known for their quarterbacks out there in Athens.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's kind of funny. I mean, honestly,
Quincy Carter, like, they're known for this great. Yeah, no, they're not.
Yeah, I mean, some of those jokes tell themselves.
They do. Hey, I made a Georgia joke and it wasn't 1980 related. So.
Oh no, I'm proud of you. No, I'm proud of you. Actually, thanks for mentioning that. I should get a sticker for that.
Yeah. I'll go over my sleepers really quickly, and then I'll let you get to your snubs. Derek Deese, a guy we briefly mentioned before from San Jose State, 42 receptions, 677 yards, 4 touchdowns, again, a whopping 16.1 yards per catch. Omar, I'm sure you're familiar with his dad, the longtime 49ers offensive tackle and Super Bowl 29 winner. So he has it in the bloodlines. He's a little bit undersized, but that doesn't really matter with playing at San Jose State. And he's having a great year. Disappointing year for San Jose State, so certainly not the storyline that we could have had if they had had another successful year. But certainly someone to watch out for. And finally, Greg Dolczich from UCLA, 31 receptions, 477 yards, 4 touchdowns, just over 15 yards per catch. A steep drop off in production from last year, where he averaged 19 yards per catch. But it's hard not to have a drop off when you're averaging 19 yards per catch. So.
Yeah. I will say this, in terms of Derek Deese, one of the biggest what ifs of the college football season for both Deese and San Jose State is like, what would have happened if Nick Starkel would have stayed healthy the whole year? I don't think they're going to make a bowl, as much as I hate to say it, as that being my dad's favorite team, with him being from Monterey. But they have Fresno State and they got Utah State, which Utah State is under the radar for like that. That's a 7-2 team. I honestly don't know how they lost to Boise State, but anyway, back to San Jose State. Like, I think Deese would have probably crossed 1,000-yard mark in terms of it, like if Starkel's still there, because he's got 42 for 671. Deese is a deep threat, and it's not as much as him finding the holes and being open. He's a great jump ball receiver. Like, there is this one catch against UNLV, which I guess a lot of America didn't see, because that game started, I think, at 11 Eastern, like a super late start out on the west coast of UNLV, but out of the Roomba actually. But he like climbed the ladder in almost double coverage, I think, just made a spectacular grab, and that's like the kind of guy that Deese is a highlight real tight end for sure. Yeah, like in terms of I'm not in terms of Dolczich, good numbers for UCLA, but again, that sort of West Coast bias might stop him, which I'll elaborate more on the West Coast bias later on. Surprised you didn't mention Michael Mayer because playing for Notre Dame, of course, it's the Fighting Irish, biggest brand in college football, but also the tight end tradition that they have there. Like, there's been like a million tight ends that have gone to Notre Dame. It's like actually insane. Like, I'm gonna name like all the ones I can think of right now. Of course, you have Dave Casper, the king of the Notre Dame tight ends. Dave Casper, you got John Carlson in like the mid 2000s. You have Tyler Eifert, you got Cole Kmet, you have Trey Nicholas. I don't know if Troy Nicholas had such a long career. Troy Nicholas, you got Kmet. But yeah, like you get the idea. Like there's been like a million
Big
tight
shoes
ends
to
out of
fill
Notre
with
Dame.
Tommy Trimble as well.
Tommy Trimble, okay, yeah, him too. I mean, that's a guy that I was not aware of. But yeah, like you get the point in terms of tight ends, like in Notre Dame and Mayer following that tradition. Like I would have thought he would have had a bigger year than he's had. You can say that about a couple guys in Notre Dame too, like Kyron Williams. But I mean, Michael Mayer still is a brand name tight end and a household name. And he'll be drafted pretty high, I think, in the future. I mean, he's still only I don't know if he's a super freshman. Oh, he's a sophomore. Yeah, so he's a sophomore. So I mean, yeah, Michael Mayer. I'm surprised you didn't mention him as a sleeper, honestly. But yeah,
Yeah, I think I mean Trimble certainly has had a good year. There's only so many guys that I can fit on the list, and I'm not taking anything away from him, but certainly a guy to watch. And anytime you're watching Notre Dame, it seems like that tight end spot does jump out at you. But I honestly, for me, I'd just rather mention Deese and Dolczich, Kohler, all those guys. But yeah, I mean, he is having a great year as well.
I will make a quick note just to round out the semifinals to the Mackey Award. We didn't mention Jordan Weidermeyer, 30 catches, 406 yards, and 4 touchdowns for A&M. I'm not liking his stat line all that much, even though A&M's had a resurgent year. I shouldn't even say resurgent, had a quality year because they were great last year. But he was he's semifinals. I can go either way with him. I guess now to my sleepers, like a bunch of group of five guys got hosed. I'm gonna start with the biggest one. Cole Turner, which I feel like you mentioned beforehand in terms of Nevada and like a draft slot with Carson Strong. I just don't get this one because people love to talk about Carson Strong. Even Carson Strong is underappreciated, but people still talk about him being a draft ready quarterback, but they forget who he's throwing to, whether it be Romeo Dubs, who's had a great year, 55 catches, 726 yards, or in this case, Cole Turner, who has 8 touchdowns and 55 catches, like and 618 yards. He's having a great year. I mean, like one of the best years I mean, for tight ends this year, out of the country, one of the best like stat lines for any tight end in the country. But yet he's snubbed because he plays on the West Coast and plays in the Mountain West for Nevada. I just don't get it. I mean, like the West Coast bias would work for any other team, but like for Nevada, like it's the Carson. People love Carson Strong, man. Like so that's one snub I just don't get. Yeah,
He is,
I'll
I
let
mean,
you go.
yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, Cole Turner, he already had a breakout year in 2020 with what I think it was 600 yards and 9 touchdowns. Former receiver, and then after last year, packed on another 35 pounds to make himself even larger. Even though he's already a gigantic human being, he's a great pass catching tight end. He's physical. He's tough to cover for sure. And I mean, it certainly helps when you have Carson Strong throwing you the ball as well.
I mean, for sure. Like, I mean, I'm just kind of ashamed by that one, really. I mean, the numbers are there. They're way better than like, I mean, a lot of the guys on the watch list, but it's just West Coast and Group of Five bias. Which, speaking of Group of Five bias, then this next guy, Zach Kuntz, out of Old Dominion, 53 catches, 550 yards, 4 touchdowns. Better, solid numbers yard wise, catch wise as well. The problem is he plays in Conference USA, which I mean, I feel like every week, and like it's just on accident. It just comes up where like we make fun of Conference USA's lack of exposure, but like the point still stands. He plays in Conference USA, the conference with the worst television deal out of all the Group of Five, and much more FBS. But I mean, he's had good games, 119 yards against West Kentucky. But I feel like a lot of those stats are just like come from. Well, actually, I won't even say they're like come from behind stats because they've been competitive in like a lot of these games. But it's just hard when you're playing for Old Dominion, a team that's like hardly been relevant. I mean, only one bowl appearance since moving up to D1 in 2013. Yeah, 2013. It's just hard, So he's got uphill battle, but again, like you got to have people watching the games. Like honestly, like if you're gonna vote for the award, have people watching all over FBS.
Worst television deal among people who do not like watching their sports on live streams on Facebook. If you do, however, like watching your sports through live streams on Facebook, is probably the best TV deal. I will say that.
Yeah, I mean the production value in the Facebook streams isn't bad because CBS backs them. I will say that. Like I was watching Old Dominion Marshall when things got spicy in that game. I had to search for it, but once I found it, like I was not disappointed with the quality of it. But even then, still, it's like
Get
until
ESPN
old
Plus or
heads.
something to cover your games, man. Like, come on, something accessible.
They do, but it's like even still, like I mean, like I will say this, like until old heads stop watching college sports, that's going to be a recurring problem because sports should be going the direction towards streaming, but the old heads keep watching and like kind of ruining the progress. I mean, conferences like Conference USA are forward thinking, but older folks can't really find the games, but. I don't mean to crap on anyone old, but it's just like that's just the way it is. I mean, that's just a trend I've been noticing. But I guess going to that topic, staying Conference USA with another snub, Garrett Prince for UAB. And you want to talk about a home run threat at tight end? He's got 21 catches, 471 yards. He's got 9 less catches, and he's got more yards than Jordan Weidemeyer. And like looking at Greg Dolczich too, I think he's got more yards than Dolczich too. Dolczich, sorry, or Sich. No, he's got 7 less yards than Dolcich has good yards per catch. But yeah, Garrett Prince has 21 catches, 471 yards, 22 yards per catch, but 7 touchdowns and 21 catches for a UAB team. And that's a team that's calling card is running the ball as well. But he's been a home run threat. And like if you're gonna like put a guy like Brock Bowers, who's been a home run threat at tight end, Isaiah Likely as well. I mean, you got to put Garrett Prince as well there too. He's got a 72-yard touchdown catch for the Blazers this year. And again, a third of his catches have been for touchdowns. Like that's a total home run there. Like look at these stat lines: 4 catches, 114 yards versus Rice; 3 catches, 136 yards, and 2 touchdowns against North Texas. Like these are elite stat lines. But yeah, just a few guys in the Group of 5 getting hosed by the Mackey committee.
And that's the second, I want to point out, that's the second tight end that you've mentioned in these snubs as a former wide receiver. Garrett Prince was a former JUCO wide receiver. I forget the school, but man, I mean, it speaks a lot when you have this size and then you move a little bit inside and then have significantly more production. And I'm not sure about Prince, but I know Turner packed on a bunch of weight as well. So yeah, it's just something to look at. It's something to keep in mind.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. Like I didn't know he's a former receiver too, but I mean, it's like it's like some guys that don't have the speed at receiver, but you can bulk them up. It's a good move for sure. Oh man, as I'm about to sneeze, or not. But yeah, like I mean, we'll see. It's interesting some years where like guys have great stat lines, like in other awards, like 2018 comes to mind for me, where like you just can't ignore some of the stats, and I felt like you couldn't ignore the stats for Cole Turner, but that's what they did. I always feel like there's no excuse if the Bolitnikoff can make Andy Isabella a finalist for UMass. There really is no excuse for any other award, honestly. I don't know what to say after that, honestly.
I don't want to be too hard on them considering they have Likely and McBride and all these other group of 5 guys in Dees. I don't want to like hate on them too much considering we try and bring a lot of light to group of 5 guys, but at the same time, like they miss some obvious ones for sure.
I mean, like all you have to do is like the stat comparison. Like I get Weidemeyer plays in the SEC, but like he's got 25 less catches and over 100 less yards than Cole Turner. It's like I'm speechless. I really am.
One thing I want to point out also, and like we've talked about this so many times, people are going to get tired of hearing of it. Like at the next level in the NFL, like if you play well, like they will find you. It doesn't matter where you're playing. Like I remember seeing this tweet from Daniel Jeremiah, who's the head draft analyst at the NFL Network, and he said like in all my years of working in front offices, like not once did we mention, oh, he was like the Mackey winner or something like that. Like college football awards are irrelevant to guys when scouting at the next level. And so this is truly like whoever wins it, when we all watch the presentation of, and the awards and all that on ESPN, like that is not necessarily the greatest indicator of like who actually is the best or anything like that. So just something to remember. Like it's these are voted on by media members who do not have the time or expertise to really learn all the ins and outs of this. So just something to remember when you're watching these and who wins them.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I have nothing else to add player wise. Yeah. So do you want to move on to games to watch this week? Unless we had anything else on the docket?
I don't think so. Heisman's pretty much the same, so no real need to go over all that again. But yeah, for sure. Let's go ahead and go right into week 11. Gosh, it's hard to believe it. But week 11 games to watch.
Yeah, I will say this, Jackson. I mean, I don't think I have a single FBS game this week because I mean, as the races heat up in FCS, like the real playoff push heats up in the FCS, like there's a lot of great games this week. Like it's really judgment week in the FCS. So I'm gonna start with my first game. And I'm not
ironically
doing this.
have all FBS. So you go ahead, take the lead on the FCS.
That's been
game.
the trend. I have one D3 game, which I'm saving for last because it's I think it's the best game of the week, honestly. But I'm gonna start off with I'm not doing this to be a homer, but Holy Cross versus Fordham. Both teams are 4-0 in the Patriot League. You have a really contrast in styles. You have a 2 quarterback system for Holy Cross, and they love to run the ball. They have Peter Oliver with over 600 yards, running the ball very well, 3 touchdowns. They have Marco Siderman throwing the ball well, and of course Matt Sluka, the Zach Wilson, the Seven Hills, running the ball very well at quarterback and also throwing it when he needs to as well. But Fordham, I mean, for a Holy Cross fan, from my perspective, this is the scariest game of the season because you have Tim DeMorat. This team's scarier than UConn, I'll be real. DeMorat this year has 27 touchdowns in 9 games, 2,641 yards. I mean, DeMorat can sling the ball. Expect to see him in an all-star game near you. Really great quarterback, and I think he'll be a sleeper. I mean, Fordham's kind of got a little bit of a quarterback pedigree with John Skelton, longtime NFL vet. But both teams are 4-0. This will likely decide who goes to the playoffs. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm pretty nervous as a Holy Cross fan for this one because DeMorat can play, like I've said. But this game's in the Bronx at Coffee Field. So there won't be the home field advantage of Fitton Field, but I think Fordham kind of struggles filling Coffee Field. So we'll see. But yeah, that game is going to be at 1:00 Eastern on ESPN Plus. So yeah, put that on your streaming stick and have that, in the background, or put on your laptop in the background because it's important. It's going to be a barn burner.
Absolutely, that's going to be one to watch, especially in the Patriot League. A little bit later, we'll go over my my sudden interest in Patriot League football. But anyways, I'm going to go with my next game. Omar, the Lions play at the Steelers this Sunday, November 14th. They should send a bunch of scouts in a couple of days before for this one. North Carolina at Pittsburgh. Sam Howell and Kenny Pickett. Sam Howell, a guy who we were talking number 1 overall earlier this year, which is where the Lions are drafting if the draft was today. Kenny Pickett, a guy who we didn't talk much about at all, and he is like surging as one of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. These are 2 top 10 offenses, both averaging over 500 yards a game. UNC also disappointing here, yet to win a road game, which I found surprising. So this is definitely going to be one to watch.
Absolutely too, because people don't realize that like Sam Howell is pretty much willing North Carolina. I think I saw a stat where it's like the amount of players in ACC history with I think either 300 and 100 games, like there's a certain number. He's up there with the likes of Lamar Jackson and Deshaun Watson in terms of being a dual threat, and it's really under the radar because North Carolina's had just not a good year. But no, this is important as well. I guess
I think it also speaks to how we didn't realize how important of a role Michael Carter and the
Javonte Williams.
Yeah. I don't think any of us realized how important they actually were last year. And it's not to take anything away from Sam Howell, but look at Sam Howell is playing pretty much just as good as he was last year, if not a little bit better. And man, they are significantly worse without Carter.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and watching this game closely will be Virginia. They'll be watching it closely because for them, this will have important. I mean, this will make, I think, the game on the 20th pretty much the de facto ACC Coastal. Got my divisions mixed up. The de facto ACC Coastal Championship. Virginia, of course, having the night game, the Saturday Night Football game against Notre Dame. Only their second appearance on Saturday Night Football, which is cool. But yeah, no, should be fun on Thursday night on Veterans Day and everything. My next game, I'm gonna stay in the South, but I'm gonna go with the SoCon right here, and we have Mercer versus Chattanooga. We talked about Mercer last year coming so close to their first ever playoff appearance. They're back this year. They're 6-2. They have one loss in the SoCon, and the SoCon is absolutely bananas this year because you got Chattanooga with one loss, you got East Tennessee State with one loss with Quay Holmes, who we've talked about before. You got VMI, Jacob Harris, and Seth Morgan out there in Lexington, Virginia. They have one loss. So you have 4 one-loss teams, and things are going to be proven in the next couple weeks. But starting off with this game, you got Mercer. Quarterbacking them is the former backup for Coastal Carolina and Grayson McCall, Fred Payton, who started the Georgia Southern game and played very well for the Chanticleers last year. I mean, Mercer loves to run the ball, averaging over 236 yards per game, running the ball. They play tough defense, allowing about 21 points per game. But this game is absolutely huge down there in Macon, Georgia. 3 p.m. Eastern against Nuga. Nuga also plays tough defense as well. So this one is going to be just a grinded, knockdown, drag-out game. Chattanooga allows 17 points per game on defense, and they're led by 2 guys with 9 TFLs, Jay Person and Ty Beck. Boker Beck, I'm not sure how to pronounce it. And then on offense, they love to run the ball. Just a hard SoCon team. I mean, you might even say like the SoCon, I mean, them being an FCS version of SEC team because they love to run the ball with Island Ford, who has 934 rushing yards. So this one, it's almost like an elimination game because I don't think the loser will get an at-large bid. I mean, especially if it's Mercer, because Mercer got absolutely worked by VMI earlier this year, 45-7. So I don't think the loser gets an at-large bid. And plus, Mercer has East Tennessee State the next week. But this could be 2 weeks. This could be 2 weeks to remember for Mercer if they end up beating Chattanooga. And I don't think Chattanooga gets an at-large with the 6-3 record. So yeah, down there in Mercer, 3 p.m. Eastern on ESPN Plus.
You mentioned the games in Macon. It's not a far drive to Macon from Augusta. Are you going to be attending this game? You're muted again, man. Come on.
I know. I don't know. Honestly, I might have to wait it out. But you make a good point. I will say that, Mr. Danner. You do make a good point. But we'll see. We'll see for sure.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm going to go ahead and get my last Power 5 game over with. I'm going to go ahead and go with Oklahoma at Baylor right here in Waco. Somehow Baylor did not really drop in the rankings this past week. Baylor has a very balanced offense, and they really do. It's 227 passing yards per game on average, 231 rushing yards per game on average. Oklahoma, if you're looking at their defense, they have the 37th ranked rushing defense and 233rd ranked passing defense. It's going to mean the game's going to be in Jerry Bohanahan's hands, of which he did throw a pretty much what was a game-losing interception last week on the road at TCU. Baylor, their 2 losses, neither of them have come in McLean. And the good news is, I mean, yes, it is Caleb Williams, who's just, I mean, apparently we're handing him the Heisman Trophy now. But what got the beat last time was Jalen Hurts, and one of the best performances we've seen in a while in the Big 12 at quarterback. So they don't have him on the other side. It's going to be interesting to see. Last time these 2 teams played in Waco, I mean, Baylor got off to a very fast start and then, blew the lead Falcon style. But we'll see what happens. It's going to be interesting. Kind of anticlimactic after the Baylor loss versus TCU. But I have a hard time picturing this Baylor team losing like 2 games in a row in the style that they did. So they're at the very least put up a fight. We'll see if they can pull off the upset at home.
Absolutely. I mean, I kind of feel like Baylor has an Oklahoma monkey to shake off their back, honestly. Like, because you remember the 2019 game, And it seemed like in the Big 12 title game in 2019 that they put in, I think Jacob Zeno a little too late, who I think he's transferred by now. But Gary Bohannon since improved a lot by then because I think Charlie Brewer got hurt early on in that
Yeah,
game.
Brewer got hurt in the Big 12 championship game. That was the second time they played. The first time I was there at the game in 2019. And I mean, my gosh, that was just an incredible performance. More so an incredible performance by Oklahoma than a collapse by Baylor. But yeah, you're absolutely right. They do have an Oklahoma monkey to shake off their back, and we'll see if they can get it done here.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm kind of surprised this one wasn't the night game. There's like a whole bunch of inner workings there too, like in terms of who gets what. Oh yeah, this is big noon kickoff.
Yeah, big
So
noon kickoff, the most important game of the week, Omar. Come on.
Oklahoma fans are not happy.
Yeah.
They're staying mad right now. That's the reason they left the Big 12. I mean, that was the first domino. Nebraska, Oklahoma at noon. First domino in
I
conference realignment.
I saw this tweet. It was really funny. It was oh, gosh, what did it say? It was like all Baylor had to do was beat TCU, and now because they lost, like Clay Travis is going to be talking about cancel culture at 7 a.m. with Big Noon coming down there in Oxford show.
Oh man. Yeah, I just gotta say, man, like the people that signed off on that, I gotta wonder what they're thinking, man. If that was really gonna drive ratings, but I don't want to get too much into Clay Travis and Outkick. But anyway, so I think that's a good time to move on to this next game. So in the MEAC, which is something I'm gonna cover tomorrow and releasing on Friday with Dwayne from HBCU, the Yard HBCU Sports, longtime friend of the podcast. So there is a possibility for a three-way tie in the MEAC and for a spot in the Celebration Bowl. And just yesterday, the MEAC released their tie-breaking scenarios. There's a scenario where North Carolina Central, Norfolk State, and South Carolina State will all end up with a 4-1 record. And I've talked about the 5-game season before. So there's 2 games. Well, there's actually 3 games you need to watch. First up, you got. Let me pull up the schedule because I don't remember the times. I remember the games being played. So first up, you got Howard NC Central at 1 o'clock. Howard struggled this year. North Carolina Central, they beat Norfolk State last week, something that I did not expect in an absolute thriller, 38-36 game. You got Davius Richard throwing the ball well with 13 touchdowns and 5 picks. Also running the ball very well too for the Eagles, so with 253 rushing yards. But I mean, mentioned Davius Richard last week. They're at 4-5, but they have 1 loss in conference with 2 games to play. They got Howard. Then you got Norfolk State. We've talked about Norfolk State and that star-studded team with Deshaun Dixon making the East West Shrine Bowl. You had J.J. Davis last week being an absolute revelation with over 217 yards and 3 touchdowns on only 18 carries against North Carolina Central in that double overtime game. And of course, Juwan Carter, 17 touchdowns and 2 picks. They have Delaware State, a team that would have also had a chance at a 4-way tie had they not lost to Morgan State. But yeah, so it's pretty wild in the MEAC. That one's at 1 o'clock as well. Norfolk State needs to win that one, and then oddly enough, non-conference play will have a role in this tiebreaker because if all 3 teams end up at 4-1, then it goes down to who has the most wins against FCS non-conference opponents. That being said, South Carolina State hosts North Carolina A&T. North Carolina A&T is now in the Big South. If you don't remember with the whole realignment thing, this one should be a good game because you got Jalen Fowler throwing the ball pretty well, 10 touchdowns, 8 picks, 1,714 yards. He has to throw the ball against Jacoby Durant, East West Shrine Bowl invite. That game is at 1:30 out there in Orangeburg, South Carolina. So just wild times in the MEAC. I grouped that as one game because really, I mean, it's a national title race because the winner gets the Black College Football National Title. Winner of the Celebration Bowl gets the Black College Football National Title. So just really chaotic. Really pick your poison for whichever game. Like I've been saying, like it's a judgment week for FCS football. So yeah.
Yeah, no, it certainly is. There's so many great games at the FCS level this week. It's a really deep slate. And man, if you don't have an ESPN Plus subscription, you got to get one. If only for this week, it's like $6 a month. And you get so much quality football live streamed with it as well. This is not a commercial for ESPN Plus, I might add. It's just worth it because I know I watch it every Saturday. I know you do too. I'll go ahead and go with my next game. I'm going to go with UCF at SMU. This is a really important game in the American Athletic Conference. If you don't remember, the AAC, like the Big 12, has no divisions, right? So it's just the top two. Cincinnati, there's Cincinnati, then there's Houston, then there's these two, and it's a huge drop off after that with UCF. They might be looking forward to a big game versus UConn next week, but certainly an important game this week for them to win. SMU, they do have Cincinnati next week. 8-4 is a lot worse than 9-3 for these two teams, and it looks like the winner might go to the Military Bowl, and then the other one in the SoFi Hawaii Bowl. Whoever loses this game, which is, I mean, we'll talk about this, I'm sure, on Bulls and Booze during Monday Night Halftime on Instagram Live, shameless plug. But I mean, it's a big difference in caliber of bowl games with that, because that's the third and the fourth tie-in for the AAC. So we'll see. I don't know, what are kind of your thoughts on this game?
So I think it's huge because like before you know it, like with SMU losing to Memphis, like the race for a spot in the AAC title game is like a lot tighter than like people would have expected if you looked at, even last week. Yeah, I mean SMU is kind of out of it. I think so. The thing is with ESPN bowls, just like a quick bowl talk. I love talking about the processes of these bowl games. It's like, so with ESPN, they'll create made for TV matchups. So like looking at the Fenway Bowl, which is great that they play a Power 5 team, but they'll probably go, I think, one of two routes. You get SMU and Tanner Mordecai, high-powered offense versus high-powered offense, SMU UNC at the Fenway Bowl. Or in that case, the Military Bowl too, because the AAC kind of lacks depth this year. There's only going to be like 6 bowl teams, and it's top-heavy conference this year. Or they'll go with UCF for UCF's case. If they win maybe like one more game or so, I think no matter what, UCF might be destined for a matchup with like Miami. I think ESPN might even set up a Miami UCF matchup, something that we've hardly seen just for the TV ratings. But yeah, like you mentioned, Hawaii, it'll be interesting to see who gets sent out to Hawaii. I mean, that doesn't sound like a punishment, but opponent wise, it's like a big drop. So yeah. But yeah, huge game too. Mikey Keene's trying to find his way at quarterback with Dylan Gabriel injured. So we'll see for sure. Like I don't think it'll be as much as explosion as it would be in past years, but it should still be an interesting game.
Yeah, no, it should be. And like you said, SMU has had such a drastic turn of their season. Just a couple of weeks ago, we were talking about, there's Michigan State, Ohio State, but SMU, Cincinnati might really be the biggest game on the lineup for that week. And now this is completely different now. Now we're talking about Montana State or whatever his game day might be going there the week before rivalry week. So yeah, no, it'll be interesting to see with UCF and SMU. Like I said, 8-4 is a lot worse than 9-3. You do not want to be facing that. So, and both of these teams are.
I mean, yeah, for sure. Yeah, which that's gonna be a huge game. What channel did you say it was gonna be on? Is that ESPNU or?
I believe so. Let me double check that real quick. I'm not sure.
Okay, so
it is. Let's see. I'll pull it up. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So for my next game, gonna go again opposite direction. Like I said, all FCS games, one D3 game. In a time-tested rivalry like no other, one of 2 time-tested rivalries we'll be talking about. You got Yale versus Princeton, the HYP triumvirate, Harvard, Yale, Princeton. You talk about the history of college football. Yale and Princeton, playing at the Polo Grounds ever since like the 1880s, and really national relevant games. The Ivy League race is another conference race that will get spicy. I'm not just saying this because like I love the Ivy League, but there's a legitimate chance for a 3-way tie in the Ivy League. With Dartmouth beating Princeton on last Friday night, it really complicated things because you have 3 one-loss teams at the top. Yale, of course, is Harvard next week. Harvard has 2 losses in conference. Princeton and Yale, well, shoot. Right now this is a 3-way tie, so I will say that. So I mean, you could have 3 teams with 2 losses in the final week, but Princeton looks to rebound after last week. I thought they were unbeatable. You got Cole Smith and Colin Edey. Yale, on the other hand, like they're finding their groove on offense. Like last week, they've had 100 points for past 2 games. Last week, well, actually, 142 points. We'll bring it back to the past 3 games. They've had 142 points in their last 3 games. Last week, 63-38 win over Brown. And I'm gonna bring a quick aside. We love EJ Perry, Senior Bowl watch list. Can you get this man some help? This man, this man threw for 261 yards and 3 touchdowns. Was the second leading rusher with 74 rushing yards on only 6 carries. Had a 56-yard run. This man was the second leading receiver in a game where Brown threw for 336 yards, and he had a 64-yard touchdown catch. Like it's almost becoming a joke now how much EJ Perry does. Like this man needs help. But Yale was able to overcome that with a 63-38 win. They have a high-powered offense. They made a quarterback change from 2018 Rookie of the Year, Ivy League Rookie of the Year, Griffin O'Connor to Nolan Grooms, who's had 11 touchdowns and 2 picks. He's on a 3-game tear, throwing for 283 against Penn, 279 against Columbia, a little sad face, and then 330 yards against Brown on only 26 attempts. So should be a really awesome game out there in Princeton. Again, 1 o'clock at Princeton at I almost called it Palmer Stadium, the old one, but like honestly, Jackson, like this whole noon slot is like it's kind of packed like on the FCS. I don't think I've mentioned a game. Oh yeah, Mercer was in like the late afternoon slot, but it's like there's just so many great games in the FCS in the afternoon. It's pretty wild.
There is a stacked noon slate. If you're going to be watching these games on Apple TV, just know on the ESPN app, which you watch all the ESPN Plus games on, you can like actually stack like 4 on the screen, which is really cool. So get Apple TV. So
I did not know that.
It's clutch. It's clutch. So yeah, no, get an Apple TV, and then you can, put. It's like there's options for the layout, like 2, 3, 4 games. It's really cool. So you'll definitely need that for your FCS noon slate for sure. I'm gonna go ahead and go with my next game. It might not seem on the surface like a very important game, but I beg to differ. Tulsa at Tulane. Tulsa might be the best 3-6 team in the country. I'm not saying that sarcastically. Their losses are the first ones to UC Davis, who is 8-1. Omar, UC Davis's margin of victory is 20 points above, or a little over 20 points on average. Like they are dominating pretty much everyone that they play. Their other losses, you might ask: Oklahoma State, understandable; Ohio State, understandable; Houston, they're 8-1. Cincinnati, nothing needs to be said. Navy is really their only bad loss. Tulane on the preseason, we were on the Michael Pride hype train for sure. You cannot possibly say that Tulane is having a good season. They've also played only one team with a losing record. They've played Oklahoma State, Ole Miss, Cincinnati. They played SMU while they were undefeated. This is a must-win game for Tulsa, especially if they're going to make a bowl game. And Tulane, yes, they only have 1 win on the year. They have just had a string of bad luck of their opponents. Tulsa did not have much luck in that category either. We'll see. Tulsa has to win this game for a bowl. Neither team is having a great year. It'll be interesting. Just a lot of fight.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm interested you picked this one because I don't think Tulsa has a good bowl outlook, but yeah, like
they have no bowl outlook if they don't win this one. So
yeah, absolutely. That should be a really close game. Like it really should be. And in any other year, like if we're talking last year, like that last year came down to the wire. Like the Hail Mary, I think it was like the Hail Mary in regulation, like against, or was that? Yeah, that was the Hail Mary that they had against Tulane, and then Zaven Collins had like the pick 6 to end it in overtime to rob Tulane of their first win against an AP ranked team since '84. Absolutely heart-wrenching for the Green Wave, but just an instant classic as well. But yeah, we probably won't get that caliber of game this year, but again, like it still should be a good game for sure.
yeah, definitely. I hopefully it's good. Otherwise, I just sound like an idiot preparing for this, this game. Yeah, we'll see. Tulsa, like both these teams, I was looking at it and I don't know why. I just wanted to look a little bit deeper into this game. I was like, my gosh, like these two teams have like played some legit opponents. Like UC Davis is no joke, and they've played, a couple playoff caliber teams. So it'll be interesting to watch. And like I said, neither team is good by any means, but I'm pulling for Tulsa in this one just because they have a shot at a bowl game, right? But hopefully Pratt can bounce back for next year.
Absolutely. I mean, should be a fun one to watch for sure. What channel was that on? Was that ESPN Plus?
Man, Omar, the one week you asked me the channels, I don't know.
I just wanted to verify.
And
That's
I'll
all.
take a look at it real quick. Let's see. Tulane.
All right. Well, I'll go on to my next game.
With your next game, yeah. And by the way, the UCF game is going to be on ESPNU as well.
Okay, perfect. So my next game, huge conference realignment news. I mean, for anyone that's really not living under a rock, one of the teams that benefited from it, James Madison, they're on their way out, and this kind of a bitter divorce from the Colonial Athletic Association, as the Colonial Athletics Association is preventing their teams from competing in championships until they leave in 2023, which caused James Madison to terminate their membership starting in 2022. So a lot of bad blood out there, but James Madison, of course, a traditional power in FCS and kind of some new blood. It's a bit of a blue blood versus new blood. I mean, it's not exactly new in the sense that like William and Mary hasn't been around for a long time, because this is the second oldest institution of higher learning in America, in William and Mary in Williamsburg. But they're new to the FC. They're new to the, I guess, being elite scene. They haven't had a playoff appearance since 2015. They're playing James Madison. James Madison, of course, led by Cole Johnson, having a great year. 25 touchdowns, only 2 picks for the Dukes. They got a great receiving core led by Antwain Wells Jr., 49 catches, 753 yards. But they run into, it's a bit of a unstoppable force meets the immovable object, because William and Mary is playing great football. They're playing great defense, allowing only under 20 points per game. They're 6-3. They had a dominant game against Villanova, beating them 31-18. Lost to Delaware last week, but this is a team fighting for an at-large playoff berth. And it should be interesting because you have the classic defense versus offense matchup right here. I mean, they're averaging less than 22.9 yards per game, so you won't expect many fireworks from the Tribe, but again, a fun game too. And shoot, I swear we don't mean to crap on anyone's TV partners, but like 3:30 p.m. Eastern on Flow Sports. I just watch the StatCast. Just watch the StatCast, man. I'm just
not
gonna
pay
launch.
for Flow Sports. I don't care if you're Jeff Bezos and happen to be listening to this. Do not pay for Flow Sports. It's
such a bad product. Like, yeah, I'm just gonna say that. Should be a fun game. And after that, William and Mary has Richmond the next week. In-state rivalry, the Spiders have an off year, but I think they have to win. If they win here, I think if they beat James Madison, they're a lock for an at-large berth in the playoffs, which is why this game's so huge. And it's a program-defining win. Like with everything.
However, subscribe to ESPNU, because that is the channel that Tulsa, Tulane, and UCF will be on.
Yeah. So there you have it. Like, this is a program-defining win with like all the bad blood happening with conference realignment. Could you imagine William and Mary beating James Madison and using that win to go to the playoffs? Like, just so many storylines right there for that one.
No, there is for sure. I'm gonna go with my next game. Omar, you know how much I'm into Patriot League football. I can't get enough of it. This Bucknell defense is no joke, man. They've got 2 players with.
They're trash, Jackson. This team is trash. Don't even try to spin this.
Man.
Bucknell is trash.
Man, they've got 2 players with over 6 tackles for loss. Army only has 1. They've got 9 forced fumbles on the year. Army only has 5. This Bucknell offense has a ridiculous 92% success rate when they do get in the red zone. Army's success rate is significantly lower when in the red zone. These 2 opponents are probably pretty even, most would consider. Probably comes down to special teams in the end. Army is averaging less than 10 yards per punt, Omar. We talk so much about the importance of special teams, and Army is averaging not even 10 yards a punt. The Bucknell punter, he has over 33 yards a punt. I'm going to say some experts will call this an upset. I think the better team wins this one.
Are you sure you're reading that right? Zach Harding is averaging less than 10 yards a punt?
That's what I read on the Army cumulative statistics.
That's definitely a lie. That's definitely a lie. 1, 2. Bucknell has only scored 98 points in the year and allowed 309. Do with that what you will. They got blown out by a winless Lehigh team. Jackson, you couldn't spin that one anyway. Bucknell Army,
I mean,
traditional
if I
Eastern
did
games.
have to spin it, I think I spin it pretty well, right? I mean,
I don't think so, man. You didn't get the stats right, honestly, man. Because Zach Harding is definitely not averaging less than 10 yards a
I,
carry.
I saw it. I'm sure that's wrong because I didn't believe it either, but I didn't look at it any deeper than just the I guess the cumulative site that was wrong. Unless I just on those sites you have to line it up with the Excel sheet basically, and I probably got it wrong. But anyways, so we'll see.
Yeah, so I will say that. But um well, okay. So moving on to my last game, and you see some, what makes right. I mean, we're starting to have, the great rivalries of college football begin. I mean, next week will be Ivy League rivalry week, excuse me. We got, Harvard Yale, and you have the Florida Classic next week. Well, rivalry week, geez, that's harder to say. Begins this week when you have Amherst versus Williams. And this rivalry is the biggest little game in America. These teams have been playing since 1881. And this rivalry goes back 60 years further, 1821. Zephaniah Swift Moore, the president of Williams at that time, had determined that Williamstown was too remote. As I'm reading from the Wikipedia page, he decided that the campus in Williamstown was too remote, so he started his own college. He up and left his president position at Williams University to start Amherst College. And so that's where the rivalry started between there in 1821 with the president starting Amherst College. Again, these teams have been meeting since 1881. There was no biggest little game in America last year due to the pandemic. This rivalry is back this weekend, and with high stakes. Williams College, they are 8-0. They're 8-0 this year. Amherst is 5-3. High stakes. Amherst plays great defense, allowing only 18 points a game. Williams has a solid quarterback in Bobby Mymarin with 495 rushing yards net, over 585 non-sack rushing yards. Passing the ball, he has 13 touchdowns. I mean, this game, it's great. It's everything great about college football. You got history, you got Division III, you got players playing for the love of the game. You have tradition, and you have high stakes as well. I mean, Williams has such a great college football tradition. I believe when ESPN released their top 150 colleges of all time, I think Dick Farley made it. And Dick Farley is a college football Hall of Fame coach who their field is named after. And he had, I think, over a 70 or 80 win percentage for the Eafs. And I mean, if you're wondering, two of the most unique college mascots, you had the Williams Eafs, which is a cow. I'll have to ask my cousin Crystal, a Williams graduate. Shout out Crystal. And then Amherst used to be the Lord Jeffs until they found out Lord Jeffrey Amherst was kind of a jerk bag. So they changed that to the Mammoths. But great rivalry. It's on Nesson. I mean, I'm getting chills talking about it. The biggest little game in America. Tune in.
I love the Mammoths, by the way. That's very original, to say the least.
Oh, it's great. It's great.
By the way, you're right. It's 9 yards a punt return average, which is why. So I admit I did screw that up. Maybe this game won't be as close after all. But yeah, man, absolutely. But definitely the best game going on in Division III football this week. And like you said, it's just for the love of the game, man. Like these guys, they're playing. They have no other reason to play than besides the fact that they love football, and they wanna continue that as long as they can, which is awesome to see. So, but man, that about wraps up for me. Anything else you got for the week?
No, that should be it. I mean, I'm excited for this week. I mean, really, the races are taking shape, and like I said, rivalries. I kind of want to, I kind of want to get some hot cocoa or something and find a stream of the Amherst Williams game. Sit down with some hot cocoa and or something wintry.
Maybe you should buy the Flow Sports package. Just go all out,
No, I don't think that's on Flow Sports. That's the thing. Like I'm trying to figure out
No,
how
like
it
for the
is.
other game you were talking about that's on Flow Sports. Go ahead, why not?
See, I don't like William and Mary that much, or James Madison that much. Yeah, like I'm trying to figure out. Let's see, to watch it. Is there NSN Northeast Sports Network? There might be a way I can watch this. Okay, we'll see. Because I'm excited for Amherst Williams. Game Day visited there in 2007. So very well known
We
rivalry.
went to a D3 school. I couldn't remember which it was, but
Yeah,
yeah.
it was Williams and Amherst for the biggest little game in America. So it's a I'm excited. So yeah, that's all I got to say.
Yeah, man. Well, that's awesome, man. like we say, it seems like almost every week the week where there's not that many like great games always is the week where the craziest stuff happens. So that's going to be awesome to see. Although it is a stacked slate at the FCS level, I will say, just maybe not.
I'm amazed. I was amazed by how stacked the slate is. So if you're gonna watch, like, if you get bored and like the marquee games get a bit out of hand, definitely tune into ESPN Plus because I mean there'll be at least one game on at that moment that has like huge playoff
And
implications.
ESPN Plus, like they show the scores on the preview too, so it's not like you're gonna have to tune into each one and see where it's at. Like you can see the score before you click on it. So anyways, for what it's worth. Yeah, man, we'll get ESPN Plus, get that Apple TV with the 4 screens set up, and we'll be all set for another great week of college football. We don't have too many left. It's because this year has like flown by. So that'll be awesome. But yeah, man, that about wraps it up for me.
Yeah, absolutely. Same here. And we'll enjoy each weekend of college football because it's kind of running out. But until then, peace, love, and soul.